Hello, hello, hello. Hi, everyone. How are we doing tonight? Excellent. Welcome to Manny's. We are so excited everyone is here. We know we have a lot to talk about tonight. Who is here for the first time? Whoa, cool. Okay. Thank you all so much for coming. Super quick. My name is Precious. I'm the director of programming here, part of a mighty team that make Manny's possible. We have a tradition that we kick off with every event. Oh my gosh, it's good to see you again, the dog. Whether you've been here one time, never before, 50 times, doesn't matter. We invite everyone to reach out across the room, find someone you don't know, introduce yourselves. And for today, the quick question is, what's your favorite thing in Golden Gate Park? So I'm gonna give you like a minute. So find somebody, make that connection.
Hi, I'm James. I used to teach in the summer, so
Dungeness crab being missing from Thanksgiving tables this year. Crabbing season delayed again. This time it's affecting a new crop of fishermen. KPIX5 John Reardon spoke to one who
Dungeness crab for Thanksgiving once again. A lot of the charter boats gave up. Some boats have canceled. James Smith operates 2 charter crab fishing boats out of Marina. But this time,
I hope you all enjoyed that interactive activity. We're all about interactivity and community here at Manny's. Thank you all so much. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the space that you're in, and I'm going to turn the mic over to our moderator for the evening, Manny himself. But basically, what is Manny's? We are a community space right here in the heart of the mission that is focused on helping each of you, members of the community, engage and get active in civic and political life. So that means events like this, that means candidate events, that means phone banking, that means supporting the community in a myriad of ways. One of the ways you're doing that, in addition to being here tonight, is buying drinks and snacks. Our nonprofit partner that manages our cafe is Farming Hope. They work with formerly unhoused and incarcerated people, giving them job training skills in hospitality so that they can go out and get jobs and be full participating members of our community. So we're really excited. Thank you all for your support with that. And now I'm going to wrap this up because I know you all really want to hear this conversation tonight. So Manny, take the mic.
Thank you, Precious, for that introduction. Thank you for your tireless effort and work. Thank you for being so wonderful. Precious was one of the first people that I told about the Manny's idea when it was just in my sketchbook. And so she has had a front seat to it since the very beginning. And I thank you for being part of this team. Thank you, Ram, for running the Zoom. And for all the people on Zoom, you may not be here in person, but you're here in spirit. And we thank you for tuning in. And thanks to all the folks at the front for serving drinks tonight. I believe Lisa was at the front, and Jenna, and Soli. Close enough. And then Tomas is somewhere probably hiding. And to Tomas, thank you for all of your work and effort. And that's the team. Thank you for being here. So This is our second in a series that we started here where we're trying to answer some of the tough questions that folks in the city are wrestling with themselves. The first event was, I think, last week, and Precious moderated a conversation with the new director of the Department of Behavioral Health on basically how do we address mental health issues and substance abuse on our streets. It's something that we all experience. And it's a tough one. And so she moderated that conversation. And tonight, the question is, should JFK Drive be closed to cars? It's a question that a lot of people in the city are talking about, wrestling with. And one of the things that I'm really excited about is I'm really excited to model what a civil, constructive, respectful, in-person conversation on a touchy subject can look like. The reason why we founded this space is because I really do believe in my heart of hearts that in person is the best way to actually wrestle with these things. And so that's why we created a physical place to do it. And I'm excited to tonight. So a couple ground rules. It is a big panel. I hate big panels because you can't really, it's hard to dig in, but we're going to try to. So I know a lot of us have strong feelings and opinions on this, and that's great. And I love that. And that's something that we love about San Francisco. I don't think I need to tell you this, but be respectful, be civil. There's going to be ample time for audience Q&A. And then afterwards, we're actually going to break out into groups of 4 and discuss in groups of strangers what we learned, what we think, and what our opinion on the issue is. So there'll be lots of time for participation. Cool? All right, let's bring our panel up to the stage in no particular order. You guys can all just file in on these chairs. We have Luke, Jason, Ike, David, and Sarah. And then Sarah right there. Amazing. Let's give them a round of applause. And while Luke's got a mic, she can come on stage if she wants. Yeah. Everyone's got a mic. I have a Beyonce fan. Sorry, rest of the panelists. You guys didn't get one. So welcome, you guys. I've been thinking about this for so long. I am so glad you all would come here and engage in this conversation with me. I have to make one disclaimer. Yes. So I am on the board of the SFMTA. We will be voting on this issue on JFK. But obviously, it should be obvious to you that tonight's conversation does not in any way represent what the SFMTA board or agency thinks or believes. I wear many hats, and right now, everything I say and do is as a private citizen and a small business owner. All right? So here's how I thought we would do it. I know it's a little boring, but I kind of wanted to go down the line a little bit and ask each a specific question that I think you're probably uniquely able to answer. I might interrupt at some point and ask someone else to give a counterpoint. We might do it again, and then I'll have some open questions. We'll have an open discussion. This should go for like 30 to 45, and then we'll get to audience Q&A. Okay? Cool? Awesome. Let's start with you, Sarah, since you're the only rep from the city itself. You work for Rec and Park. If you don't mind briefly saying what you do, and then if you don't mind setting the table for us. Imagine like a Shabbat table, where you and I are setting. Yes, exactly. You and I are setting it up together. What has happened to JFK? Why did it happen? 4 questions. What are the proposals on the table, and what's the timeline?
Sure. So hi, I'm sorry for the people on my back too. My name is Sarah Madlin. I'm the Director of Policy and Public Affairs for the Parks Department. And I am going to set the table, and I'm going to put a lot of butter on my bread.
It's the only way to do it.
So what has happened at JFK? Well, as you all have noticed, because I'm looking at half of your faces with your masks on, COVID hit. And so as a response to that, the MTA and the Parks Department looked for ways to increase space for socially distant recreation. And in April, I believe it was, of 2020, we worked to, can you hear me?
Maybe just a touch closer to your mouth. Yeah.
Sorry.
Just because we have Zoom. Zoom.
Okay, Zoom friend. In April of 2020, we went forward with closing roads in the park, JFK, from Stanton to Transverse. Then there's a little jog down, and there's a section of MLK in the west end of the park that is closed as well. And this was a link in the important thing to the MTA, who's a partner of ours in this work, is a link in the network to be able to get from the ferry building to the beach on either slow streets or car-free streets. So what happened is a lot of people came. People really liked it. We have over 7 million visitors to the closed street. And what are my other questions?
So that happened. So
That
so now what's happening? And like there are proposals on the table.
Right.
There's a survey, I think. So like
Yes.
where are we now? The pandemic's not over, but she's, you know, making her final goodbyes. She's doing her encore, and then she's gonna leave us. So what's kind of, where are we now with this particular thing that happened?
Thank you for the reminder. So we have a decision in front of us about what to do with many of the adaptations that we put in place during COVID, right? We're not the only city department wrestling with this. And we, as I said, this has been something that is very, very popular. So we are undertaking with our partners at the MTA, and I'm going to try to pretend to be a transportation planner tonight to the extent that I can, as well as answer those questions. But we are engaging in a hopefully very robust outreach and engagement process to get feedback and thoughts and opinions on both the configuration of the roads open and closed in Golden Gate Park, but also a variety of other interventions. Things like allowing for taxi stands in the park, bike share and micromobility in the park, including scooters, and improvements to the Golden Gate Park shuttle, which I'm guessing many of you don't even know exists because it's not particularly well advertised. So there's a whole sort of suite of policy ideas that accompany 3 different road configurations. One is going back to the way things were before COVID. The second is keeping things essentially the road configuration the way it is now. And then the third option is being referred to as the private vehicle access loop. And for those of you that know the park, you can picture if you are coming into the park from the Fulton Street side of the park, you'll be allowed to enter on 8th Avenue, hang a right down JFK. There will be, could be 88 parking spots there and drop-off zones, and then you could proceed down JFK, hang another right at Transverse, and exit the park. So those are the 3 options that are currently out there being discussed. We have a survey. We've done over 42 meetings and hope to take that feedback and the technical analysis that the MTA will do and bring a recommendation to our commission at the parks, and a shout out to our former commissioner Eric Donald in the back, and the MTA board, and then eventually to the board of supervisors for recommendation. We expect to be doing that early next year.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Okay, so now we have Ike and Jason, and you're different people, right?
Yes, we are.
Unless we're in the Matrix and you are the same person, which I don't think we are, but the 4th installment is coming out, so we'll see. But I've asked you to come here because you both are here representing the museums. And so I wanted to ask you to quickly introduce what you do for the museums, and then tell me a little bit about what the last 18 months has been like for the museums. You know, the pandemic, but also how in your vision and your thinking and in the numbers has the closure of JFK Park affected the work of the museums itself?
Okay, all right, I'll go.
Let's start with you, Ike.
All right, hi everyone, my name is Ike Kwan. I work at the California Academy of Sciences as the Chief Operating Officer and Head of Government Affairs. So what the pandemic has been like for us the last 18 months, I think for the first several months I was there every day with a lot of our operational staff to keep our almost 40,000 animals alive and breathing. They were still moving around while people weren't coming. And it was a unique experience for me. I live in the Outer Sunset, and so I usually ride my wife's bike, because it's nicer, down JFK to work every day, or I'll walk. I think for the institution itself, naturally, we were closed most of the time. We were open briefly for a month last fall, and then we reopened this past March 15th at reduced capacity. And like everyone had reduced capacity of some sort. People started coming back, and we continue to have lower than normal attendance, which is not shocking during this time. I think that for us, it was very much about the safety of our employees and our visitors coming in. Even when the city lifted the indoor mask mandate this past summer, we still kept it. We are obviously, we're primarily a scientific institution. I was talking to Ram back there, who has not yet been to the academy.
What?
Yes, I know.
You haven't even gone on date night on the Thursday night, late night DJ tequila
Yeah, so
moment?
I didn't mean to call you out like that, but now.
Wow.
But, we have, many guests that are coming to us. And, I think everyone saw this past Halloween, people just want to do something kind of normal, right? And being here is kind of normal. And so, we want people to return safely, to come back. We have found that, obviously international visitors aren't coming back until November 8th, but very soon. And, well, a lot of locals are coming. More from the surrounding 4 counties and from California. And it's been a build back slowly, so many different vectors. Bringing people back to work was a big deal for us. And so we're still emerging. I mean, the patterns are difficult, but we are primarily a science and education research institution. That's really kind of the core of what we do. And we do have a public museum, which was opened about a quarter century after we became a research institution. And so that kind of informs how we do things. Our chief of science, Shannon Bennett, is an infectious disease virologist. So we were kind of lucky that we had someone that can interpret all the news out there, the real news and the not as real news, obviously. So we look forward to returning back to normal. I just want to make sure I'm answering your question, Manny.
No, it is. I mean, I think to put a finer point on it, I don't want to put you guys on the spot, but have you been able to tell how the closure of cars has affected the museum?
Oh, that's a really good question. So it's been challenging measuring that because sort of the before and after we were closed. We are finding that there's kind of a societal overcorrection with cars going on right now. Car sales are at an all-time high in the Bay Area, the country, et cetera. And we find a lot of people are driving to the park. We actually give discounts to at our front window. And if you just tell us you can sustainably. And same with our staff. If you use sustainably, you get extra cash or vacation days, et cetera. But right now, we're just looking at the patterns to see what the impact is. It's really too early to tell the before and after data.
Got it. Thank you. Jason?
All right. Well, first off, thank you for having us here, Manny. And it's been a pleasure meeting some of you for the first time. Luke, I know you've been active on these issues. My name is Jason Seifer. I'm the CFO at the Fine Arts Museum of San Francisco. I should also let everybody know, because I think it's germane to this conversation, that I actually also sit on the nonprofit who runs the parking garage. So I think that there's quite a lot of questions regarding that, and I would be happy to talk about that a bit today. The reality is I've only been on the board about a year. I'm not their spokesperson, but I think I could add more information to our conversation today. So I'm just putting that out there. So for the museums, prior to the pandemic, we would have about 1 million people a year coming just to the Young Museum. Amongst that million, we'd have about 50,000 or so people visiting our various education programs. What actually occurred is when the pandemic hit in March of 2020 to basically when we finally reopened for the final time in March 2021, we were closed at the de Young for 9 months total. The Legion of Honor was actually closed slightly longer. So it was actually closed for closer to 10.5 months during that period. During that time period, we lost about $20 million of revenue. Very similar to lots of the arts organizations. I know the Academy was deeply affected as well. Our performing arts peers have been absolutely decimated during this time period. So we are just starting to rebuild both our audience base and our membership base. When we were able to reopen, there was 2 time periods, if you think back. We were able to open for about 10 weeks in the fall of 2020. There was that window when the numbers fell before we all locked down again. We were able to welcome quite a number of people back, but at very tight capacity constraints. So we ended up having our capacity was more or less capped between 10 and 20% because of social distancing requirements. As you'd imagine in exhibitions, people often congregate around popular art. So you need lots of space for them. So that kept our capacity down. We actually were not able to really substantially list our capacity constraints.
I think I probably elbowed someone in the eye at the Frida exhibit.
Thank you for doing that. we weren't able to actually drop our capacity constraints until, in essence, June 15th, when the state dropped all social distancing restrictions. So for us, the only true period when we're starting to compare the now compared to the past has been since June 15th. And so when we look at our numbers from June 15th to say October 15th, we are down 50% in terms of attendance, just full stop compared to 2019, just on a comparable day-to-day basis. So for us, we do think that JFK has a big impact. That said, we don't know what is related to the pandemic, the variant, and other factors as well. And I think we can acknowledge that it is a very hard thing to disentangle the various factors at play here.
It's so tough because, we have conversations internally where we're like, attendance is down. And it's like, is it the pandemic? Is it masks? Is it Delta? Is it, what is it? And so for anyone in business or in the business of gathering, it is a very tough time to be able to plan and understand metrics. Let's go to David real quick. Hi.
Let's go.
Oh, there's a little button. Wait, over here.
How about that?
There we go. So I first just want to say that I first started roller skating over the pandemic. I'd never done it before. I got a pair of baby blue velvet, suede roller skates. So I want you to know that. Can you, I'm not sure why I need you to know that, but that's okay. I need you to know that. Can you introduce folks here to who you are? This fabulous man to my right. And for you, I want to ask you, you've probably been on JFK longer and more time than anyone probably in this room. And I want you to tell me, can you tell me what has been like one or two memorable moments from the last 18 months being with eyes and boots on the ground? And what has surprised you about being there, day in, day out for the last 18 months?
I think probably one thing that surprised me the most is when we started this Friday night.
Just keep it really close to your mouth.
And we started this Friday night skate at the skate area, JFK Drive. It was just a bunch of friends with nothing else to do. And the park was closed totally, and it was closed 24/7. So instead of just going home when we're done, we get to stay out there and have a good time. And it just took off. People were making their plans. There were no other plans to make. You couldn't go anywhere else. But since the park was closed, we was bringing out music, setting up lights and all these different things. People are now coming out with lights on their wheels and wings with lights on, and they were just escaping life, having a great time. It really boomed. And as a matter of fact, it's still going to this very day. As for my background, I have been skating in Golden Gate Park for the last 42 years. I remember the exact day I first went there. I have the same energy about it now as I did then. It has always been an exciting, fantastic, great place to go, have a good time. It's free, it's fun, it's inclusive. And I think the biggest thing about it is it has that energy that makes San Francisco special. That look what we can do, and you can do it too, and you can bring people. And it's always been something that brought people together. I met my wife skating there about 3 months after I first started skating there. All of my kids are champion skaters. We're traveling all over the country now, building roller rinks for people. We call it spreading religion. I had a skate party one night at a church on Bell and Fillmore. That was 8 years ago, actually 8 years this Saturday. And it has been rated and judged as best of the Bay by every entity just about. And we're not even trying. We're just doing what we do in the park. And it's been fantastic. Now, for this particular issue, I have been trying to close Golden Gate Park to car traffic on Saturdays ever since 1980. This started off with a little petition with our little papers, couldn't even type, and all that whiteout stuff on there to correct mistakes and all, and getting it from anybody. Hey, you want to sign our petition? And you go to Wrecking Park, and they're like, well, this is so cute. Look at these guys. But they always gave us something. The reason why you're out there on the holidays, Labor Day, Memorial Day, Christmas, that was one of those petition drives. And when I went again to ask for more, they say, oh, you're still doing that. And they say, okay, how about Monday holidays? You can have all the Mondays and we'll give you more time on JFK. I've always looked at it like sculpture. You're chipping away. You're chipping away until you have the greatest work of art. And before the pandemic, there was a storm in the park 10, 12 years ago. And it shut the park down for like 2 months because all the trees had fallen down. The conservatory flower was almost destroyed and all that. But people got a chance to see what we have been talking about. You don't have to have the cars on JFK Drive. You know, we can exist, it's wonderful, but the pandemic changed everything. People got a chance to come out and they loved it. It was similar to where when they had the earthquake and people had nowhere to live. And so they opened up the park so that people could have a place to live, and a place to survive, a place to, you know, do what they need to do. I think that the closing of JFK Drive was sort of a similar thing like that, where the people of the city can have somewhere they can go, somewhere to exercise, somewhere to get away from the tension and the uncertainty about the coronavirus. So it has changed everything. And, you know, people don't like change. I like stuff to be where I put it. But evolution is life. And this park is evolving, and I want to be a part of that.
Thank you, David. Thank you. So I just one quick follow-up and then we'll get to Luke. Why do you think that the closure of cars is important for the skating in particular? Because, you know, the skating place is off the road and ostensibly people could drive and be dropped off there. So I'm hearing you, but maybe I just want to ask you as a follow-up, like, why do you think it's important to close cars to create that sense of joy, in your opinion?
I think mainly because it's not just about skating. It's about people. You can walk down the street without cars running you over. You know, you can enjoy that with your family. You can ride your bike. You can picnic right by this spot right here. And, you know, you don't have to worry about cars, pollution, machines. Quite kept, the cars were never supposed to be in the park. Every last one of y'all who have a car got a driver's license. Where do you think that driver's license concept came from? It was from people in Golden Gate Park that didn't want them, their horses rearing up when these newfangled cars start backfiring. And so they made you have to get a license, adopted all over the world. You know, there was never supposed to be there in the park, but, you know, powers that be. So,
Got it. Okay. Thank you, David. We're going to get back to this in a sec, but Luke, the question I want to ask you to start is, you know, you've devoted a lot of your time to keeping cars off of JFK, preserving this experiment that has occurred as a result of the pandemic. I want to ask you why you care about this so much. Like, why is this such a personal effort of yours? And also, I want to ask you what's at stake here for the community that you represent with the organization you organize for. Kind of, you know, why is this so important, and what do you believe is at stake with the future of this particular stretch of road?
Thank you, Manny, and thanks for organizing this. I love that you want to bring minds together and find kind of a win-win for something that a lot of people care about. So just for anyone who doesn't know, I'm a lead organizer with Kids Safe SF, which is a relatively new all-volunteer advocacy organization. And we are advocating to kind of repurpose a lot of our public space for kind of kid-safe spaces. So spaces that kids can play, learn how to scoot, run, bike, and just be kids. And on the top of that, you know, we see kid-safe spaces as safe for kids and safe for everyone. So if it's safe for a kid, then it's safe for someone in a wheelchair, it's safe for someone who's blind, it's safe for someone who's 75 years old. So that's kind of what we're about. And we are largely parent run, parent led. And so to your question about what got me interested in it, I would say I've kind of always liked serving other people and helping other people. And when I see something that other people care about, I'm just naturally drawn to it. And so early on in the pandemic, I came across Car Free JFK and was just drawn by the life and the number of people out there. And just, I mean, it's kind of addictive to be out there and just see people smiling, see people enjoying the park, enjoying like the silence of just nature and the beauty of the park. And so people naturally wanted this to be a thing for the long term. And so I just felt drawn to do it. Sure, on top of that, you know, my wife and I have a 2.5-year-old, and she learned to scoot out there and she loves it. She calls it the street park playground. But really it is less about me. It's less about the people behind SF. It's about the people who are enjoying the space, 7 million people who have visited the space, who love it, and who see this as an amazing opportunity for our city to reinvent this space and make it accessible for everyone and enjoyable for everyone. And the last part of your question.
No, it was what's at stake, I think.
So I think what's at stake. I think this is a unique opportunity for our city to make a statement about how we think about and how we value public space. We have a space that represents 1.5 miles of road that, which is, by the way, less than 10% of the roads in Golden Gate Park, and about 0.01% of the roads in San Francisco. Before the pandemic, it was used for cut-through traffic. About 88% of the traffic on JFK was cut-through traffic. And I think we have an opportunity as a city to lead both for our state, for our city, for the country, for the world, to say, we can do different things in public space, especially when people flock to it and use it.
What's up, Los Angeles?
I think that's the opportunity here. I think it's a unique opportunity for us as a city to lead on that.
Okay, thank you, Luke. So everyone has spoken, so round of applause for everyone. So I think, Jason, a couple, I kind of want to give you guys the opportunity to dig in a little bit on what you've seen. It's hard to know the numbers, but a couple specific follow-ups. Have you been able to experience the car-free aspect are also coming into the museums? And have you guys tried to find ways to bring these people who are maybe going to go roller skate or whatever to then go to the General Cal Academy? And then I want to ask you, I mean, it's not hidden that there have been concerns around access, specifically people who cannot bike. And I want you to talk about what the lack of parking has meant for you, because we don't always hear that. So I want you to give me that perspective. What does the lack of parking mean? I think it's 400 spaces total. How do you think it's going to affect the operation of the museum and your customers? And then what effort has been done, if any, to try to get these folks who are coming in to experience a car-free aspect to come to the museums?
Shall I start? Thank you for that question. So just a couple of things. When we think about the car-free spaces, we are very excited by some of the ideas and proposals that have certainly been put forward, and because it does bring people and new people to the park. We have, and I don't know how many of you know this, we have a program called Free Saturdays that we have at both the DeYoung and the Legion of Honor. It provides free access, general admission access to anybody who's a San Francisco resident and anybody in the 9-county Bay Area, which includes San Francisco. This program itself has really exploded over the past, since we started in 2019. We were just starting to build it again. It's a way to bring people here into the museums, into our spaces. I think the thing that we're most concerned about is that if people don't have easy access to the park, or are closer, or aren't on a transportation line, it is very hard for folks to get there without driving towards the park in some format or another. And currently the way the garage is set up is that it's incredibly expensive. We all know that, right? So we can just put that on the table. We can talk about that in a little bit about sort of what I know about that process as well. But it's incredibly expensive for folks who can't necessarily afford to come to the museums otherwise. So we're concerned. So in general, because of the loss of parking, we've lost basically 75% of the free spaces within a quarter mile of our institution, 50% of the spaces within a half mile of the institution. These are some pretty significant differences if people are bringing small kids, if you're a senior with disabilities, or if you're just a senior in general. And so it's all about access for us, right? And so because when you have about 1 million people come through our doors for all the various public programs, to see our exhibitions, people come a whole variety of different ways. One thing that we did in 2017 is we did a broad-based study with the Academy of Sciences where we surveyed folks. And what we found from that, it was a very comprehensive survey, was that 42% of people came to the park with someone with some sort of disability. It could be it could be a family with like a grandparent, it could be someone who has a disability, someone who has some access challenges. And so those are the people that we're really concerned about and in terms of making sure that they have a voice in this process and really looking at concrete ways that we can address some of these issues.
Yeah, go ahead, Sarah, and then I'll have Ike chime in as well.
Yeah, I just want to note that the park has been closed, as David said, since 1967 on Sundays. And then we have the Saturday closure half of the year for half of the length. So while I completely understand that it's hard to parse COVID, Delta, masks from road closure, there are some proxies for this question that you're asking. Those proxies are, what's visitation on Sundays? Last time I looked in 2018 data, it was up at both of the institutions. There was a study done in 2006. Sorry, I pulled out my dorky notes. 2006, I know it's a long time ago, the San Francisco County Transportation Authority did a study because this question came up. Some of you may remember they were going to close the park on Saturdays. Now Governor Newsom vetoed it and said we need more information, we need a study. So they've done a study, and I have all of the bullet points if you're interested. From 2006.
So before the academy was open, were you open in 2006?
No, we were closed
Well, you were close for renovation.
for 5 years. Yeah.
So there are pieces. Again, there's no perfect answer to this, but there are proxies for that question that we can get into.
Yeah, I want to get into the parking lot too, because it feels like a bit of an elephant in the room, but maybe Jason spoke. Why don't you, if there's anything you want to add, if not, I kind of want to ask you guys, like, why can't we just fix the access issue with the parking lot?
Well, I'll let Jason address the
And
parking.
y'all don't need to snap, we get how you feel. Keep the snaps internal, how about that?
So I like what Luke shared. The stat is that 88% of the traffic pre-pandemic was cut through. I think
It's 75, just to clarify.
75, okay.
75% of the cars on JFK had no park purpose. They were not starting or stopping.
so a lot. Thank you.
Yeah.
And so I think there's so many things that we agree upon. You know, safety is key. I think we all want Golden Gate Park to be the final destination for people, not taking 3 minutes off of my commute to take my daughter to school or something like that. And then, you know, also I'm going to say that in terms of the impacts for the closure itself. So again, during the pandemic, there are so many variables, but what we have found with our visitors, the number one complaint we get is inconvenience, and their specifics are, I can't find anywhere to park. It's they're driving around and around and around. And these are regional visitors that are in their cars. Yes, we do prefer that they get here sustainably. But these are folks for whom maybe sustainability is not part of their regular routine. So, you know, we want them to come and be inspired and take a look at the impact of their carbon footprint so they can go back home and maybe take a look at their water usage or their food, et cetera. I think in terms of accessibility, I can just give a personal example. My late mom, who lived with us for the last couple of years of her life, was a fall risk. She was on a walker, and she loved going to the Botanic Gardens. I couldn't just drop her off. I really had to just kind of Velcro her to me so she wouldn't, you know, kind of fall over. But 50 yards made all the difference between like, just take me home, and we're gonna actually go see the pygmy redwood together. I mean, those are things that really matter to us. I think the question of this actual forum is great. Should it be closed? Because that's a question I think that bears investigation. We're taking a look at the current connectivity study, which is great. Taking a look at, you know, the effect of diversions of traffic, slow streets. And there are a lot of terrific things about it that actually work. And then I think on top of that, taking a look at accessibility improvements. Are people who come by various means, you know, by bike, by bus, those who don't live in a trans line and depend on a vehicle, how is it for them? Is it improved? Is it less improved? And when we talk about underrepresented communities, you know, how are they able to come? They're sort of the invisible folks here, not necessarily here in this forum or necessarily speaking up, but we know that we want more of them, so to speak, to be able to access the park.
Okay, so let's dig into this parking lot. So there is a giant parking lot underneath the road and you can drive to it, right? That just because JFK is close to cars doesn't mean the parking lot has been close to cars. You're on the board of the nonprofit that runs it and you've done a lot of studies on it as well, right? So why couldn't we just make a bunch of the parking spaces ADA accessible and then just and then have a special pass for employees of the museums so that if they need to park underground, they can and not spend an arm and a leg? Why can't we why can't we do that? Or can we do that?
So yeah, unfortunately, we can't do all of that, but let's talk about the history. And once again, let me just share with what I know. I'm not a spokesperson, but I think it's important that we share as much information as possible. So let's look at the history originally, because I think it's all about the history of when this garage was built. So in 1998, a voter initiative was passed. It was called Prop J. Sarah knows it well. I don't know if you were actually even at the park at the time, but
I think I was in high school.
oh.
Probably couldn't actually remember.
Touche. So it all ties back to Prop J, and so a lot of the sort of rules and regulations are actually within Prop J itself. So number one, when they built the garage, they had to set up a nonprofit in order to accept the philanthropic contributions in order to actually build it. The whole thing cost about $70 million, give or take. They spent millions of dollars on other sort of improvements in the park, but basically most of it just went to the construction. So $70 million. About 40 million of it was philanthropic contributions. So that left a delta of about 30. They issued bonds. So there's public bonds that are sitting out there. The revenue from the parking is basically just being used to pay back the bonds. What's going to happen?
1 second.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna chime in on one thing.
Yeah.
So first of all, there were 3 ballot measures before the one that
That's fair
Jason's
enough,
referring
yes.
to. So the reason we ended up with this weird mix of philanthropic money funding a garage was because David can probably do this better than anyone. But the public did not want public dollars spent on the garage. So Prop J said, fine, you can do it, but you have to raise the money. They couldn't raise all the money. As Jason said, they could raise about half. So they did, they're not public bonds. They issued, not like the government issues the bonds, right? They were revenue bonds. So they bonded against the future parking revenues. And it was just super wonky. And
Is everyone like taking notes? Like,
it's
do you have your notebook out? God damn. Okay.
it becomes important
Yeah.
because it becomes, you get about the
Okay.
flexibility of what you can do.
Let's get to the meat and
Sorry.
potatoes. Why can't we just
This
make it
actually is the
ADA?
meat and potatoes,
This-
unfortunately.
unfortunately-
It's actually like the Brussels sprouts or something.
this is why they have a finance guy come here to talk about this, bonds and everything else. But basically, this is the driving factor, as Sarah is mentioning, that they have these outstanding bonds that are being paid back. What's going to happen in the end, so that everybody knows, once they're all paid back, the garage actually reverts to the city, the nonprofit goes away. So that is really the end game here. It will go to the city once these things are repaid.
So what that means, there's 2 things I just want to chime in on that, if that's okay. One is, the other thing that happened when Prop J passed is 800 surface parking spaces in the park were removed as a requirement of that, right? They were taken and put underground. The idea being, this is a park, and it actually calls out the music concourse as a quote pedestrian oasis. Thank you for the air quotes in the back. And the reason all this wonky financing stuff becomes important is because there's actually there's a trigger in the lease that if they can't cover those debt payments, like the whole thing explodes basically. So it's the rate stuff is all connected to this
To the
boring
bond.
thing.
Yeah, into the bonds.
And how much is left before it goes away from the nonprofit? The city could just take it over.
So it's $24 million still
And couldn't-
outstanding.
And if this is really the stickler, could the city cough up $25 million, take it away from the nonprofit, take it over and do what needs to be done to give the city, the museums what they might need?
Super interesting question. I'm not a lawyer, and there's a lot of lawyers looking at it because as we talked about earlier, that 3rd ballot measure that finally passed was very serious about no public money being spent. And so there's a question of, is that in the construction? Would this be possible? All of those things are being looked at, but I don't have a definitive answer.
And what ends up happening is that actually the two things that are the highest expenses for this nonprofit are just the repayment of the bonds and then taxes paid to the city. So what actually ends up happening is that parking revenue, we send about $1 million to $2 million a year back into the city coffers, which is common for all parking garages, just so everybody knows.
It's called the parking tax.
Yes, the parking tax, thank you. And but the other things about Prop J, and I think this is important, is that the price, well, first of all, the prices are high because of the repayment of the bonds. There's no doubt about it. We as the museums would love it to be cheaper. It's all tied back to the bond repayment. But, and I think this is important, all of the parking rates are approved, and they have been approved over many years by various governmental authorities. So certainly the Rec and Park Commission is involved, the Board of Supervisors involved. I will note that we are looking to streamline some of those things. I think Rec and Park is actually working on some changes, but it will still fundamentally be difficult with the bonds. And then the final thing, and I think this is important.
And then I want to move on from the park.
Yeah.
We've warned him.
The proposition itself does not allow parking rates to privilege any one group. So you have to provide rates that are equal to everybody in the community. So we can't say choose rates for one particular group or another.
Right.
Does this
And that
mean we
does.
won't see you at Budget and Finance Committee next week where they're hearing on an item on this?
You won't. I'm gonna thank you, Jason. We're done with the explanation.
Yeah, I
Luke,
just wanted to note,
and then David, if you want to contribute, I want to give you the opportunity to.
I wanted to note a few things, that the charter for the garage does allow, so it doesn't allow for special free or discounted parking for city officials or institution employees, but that does not have to do with people with disabilities or low-income individuals in the city. And then just to point out two other things. I hear the focus on access from the museums and from Jason specifically. One thing I'm struggling with is that over 6 years ago, a woman with a disability reported to the Museum Concourse Authority and the DeYoung that they don't have a push button to enter the DeYoung Museum from the garage. We're told at the time there was no money to fund that. And I checked a month ago and they still don't have a push button there. So I'm struggling with the push for access, but there's no push button to get into the museum from the garage. And,
Okay.
and final ask is, while the city may not be able to pay it off, just a suggestion that maybe one of the trustees or the donors to the museum could update on.
Okay, thank you, Luke. So I'm just gonna take a second and pause, because there was a lot that was just put out to the ether. I think I'm glad we got there. Like, I'm glad we all put it out there, like, there are concerns about access, there's concerns about parking, there are particular complexities with this parking lot. I want to take a step back and ask one more question about this parking thing, not necessarily connected to the lot, and then I want to ask you a specific question, David. And that's, you know, I empathize that it might be tough to, at least in the short to medium term, find a way to make sure that there's just as much access for seniors, disabled folks, and employees. But I guess what I'm trying to understand is like how bad do you actually think it would be if, let's say, the employees couldn't park on those spots, but there are lots of other parking spots in the park, right? And the surrounding area, what does the doomsday scenario look like? Like, is there really insufficient parking in the, like, I don't know, half a mile radius to the museums? Where, like, if, let's say, in the future, JFK is close to cars and we haven't been able to figure out the parking lot, like, I guess I'm struggling to understand really, like, how bad it could get, right? Because it's hard to know. So from your perspectives, maybe since Jason, you just spoke with, like, really, is it so hard for them to find parking not so far away?
So before, did you want to clarify something on the policy for garage rates? No, okay, all right. So on any given Saturday, not like last weekend, which was crazy, but if you take a look at
Wait, what happened last weekend?
no, there's no concerts, no music going on. But the garage itself on sort of a normal Saturday, if you want to call it a moderate Saturday, it actually does fill up by just after lunchtime. On our peak holidays, it's full before lunchtime. And it's 800 spots shared by all the institutions altogether. And then if you look at Google Maps on any sort of Saturday and Sunday right now around the park, you see dark red and red inside the park itself. And then around the park, you see orange and red. And not all around, but in sort of key intersections around the park. And so that congestion exists, and it does make our streets less safe when you have cars going around and other people trying to share those roads. So we do see that impact. And then on a day like today, on a weekday, when kids are in school, and now mind you, during pandemic right now, kids aren't taking field trips really as much. But the garage is completely empty. I mean, it is completely empty. So when it's busy, it's not enough, and then the rest of the time it's fairly vacant.
Got it. And do you guys have faith in like a super souped up Golden Gate shuttle that, like, if you are a tourist, and I've had the privilege of being a tourist in other places, there are some like theme parks and water parks, where like you have to park far away and there's like a shuttle moment and it takes you to where you need to go. So like if Reckin Park and the city really kind of created a system that if you were coming from another country or part of this country, there was a very rapid, very quick Golden Gate shuttle that could take you to the museum. It's problem solved.
There are a lot of great ideas. I think Sarah was talking about it earlier. If it could be more visible, if you can paint it like international orange, like your jacket. But there are a lot of solutions here that can address some of the congestion issues that don't involve a private vehicle. So I'd say, yeah, I'm not a transportation expert, but I would use that all the time. In fact, when it's busy, when folks call our contact center, we tell them, don't park in Golden Gate, park by the ocean. Now the surfers aren't as happy when we do that. There is a Golden Gate Park shuttle that comes every 10 minutes on the hour, theoretically.
Is that happening, Sarah?
The shuttle.
Yeah, every 10 minutes from the ocean.
So when the road was closed, when we closed it for COVID, we shortened the route so that it ran just on the closure. It runs on the weekends. We're actually about one of the things that's out there. If you take the exciting survey, it's almost as much fun as parking. One of the things that's out there is ways to improve the shuttle. And that's everything from making the stops more visible with better signage and benches and adding an additional shuttle and having it 7 days a week.
Okay.
So it is running right now and it's running on a shorter route and it's moving more quickly. Can I chime in one more?
Yes, then I want to bring you to David.
Sure. And then the access point is, we completely understand and is very well taken. And one of the things that we have undertaken almost immediately when we started the closure was to try to mitigate the loss of blue spaces that were on JFK. And so I don't know if any of you have been to the Japanese Tea Garden, because the Parks Department also runs 3 museums in the park: the Japanese Tea Garden, the Botanical Garden, and the Conservatory of Flowers. So there are 5 main institutions. We run 3 of them. We are working to, and hope to have it done by the end of this year, pave the parking lot that's right across the street from the Japanese Tea Garden, for those of you that have been there, repave it, regrade it, and add 19 new ADA spaces there. So this is a real issue that we are taking seriously and trying to address.
And I know I keep saying we're bringing to David, but just a quick follow-up on that. Ike's mom in the Walker, if she was to use that parking lot, would she still be able to get to, is it far from the DeYoung? I mean, could she, it's not,
Yeah.
They wouldn't be accessible for like the DeYoung and the Cal Academy, though, right? It would just be for the
They're a lot further. I mean, I think this is the challenge, and we appreciate the work that you're doing around that. But the closure of JFK has resulted in almost 60% of the ADA spaces closest to the museum to just disappear. They have replaced some of them on MLK, but they are less accessible and not as easily accessible for people who are getting out of the car. So for instance, you're on busy MLK, you're on like there's curbs, you name it. And so this is not a solution to replace better spots with worse located.
One second. Okay, heard. Thank you. I want to go to David. I'm not trying to shut anyone up, but I also want to create space for others to speak. First of all, if there's any reactions, because you have been listening and I want to give you the opportunity to respond. And also I want to ask you the question. I'm asking you specifically because you've been quoted on this in the press, but there are folks who have said that by closing it off to cars, you're creating an inherent inequality because people who drive or are coming from far away, you've made it a lot harder for people to actually access as part of the park. So what say you to that, and what is your perspective on that? That claim that the presentation of that issue, that it is unequal because you're closing it off to cars.
The recreational red light. I think that people will come up with any type of an excuse or any type of a thing to make their point of view. And sometimes these things, even though they're crazy as hell, sound good when you say them. But my experience in the park is that anyone that's ever wanted to go there can definitely go. They can get there. There's ways for it to happen. And the thing about that quote that is just so bad is the person that said it has never been out to the park on a Sunday. How the hell would he know? You know, it was always about beauty and stuff like that, but I'm sorry, you know, this 800 space garage is there. I don't know why we're having this discussion. The DeYoung and the Academy, they got parking right up inside the building, you know? And, you know, you fought for it, you did everything you could to get it, and now you got it. And one of the, Warren Hellman, he was part of this whole thing. He was on the cover of, I think it was the Bay Guardian or something like that. And plus he came by my Burning Man camp. I have a roller disco Burning Man. And basically to me, it was like, hey, this garage is going to be the answer to getting the park closed on Saturday. You know, once they have a place where people can park, then, you know, those things are gone. And all the tests and all the research and all, you know how many times they've done this research? You know how many times? And they come up with the same thing. I would tell you right now, the most popular day and go and get parked for business is Sunday. And that Sunday, you have more people coming out to the park for what it was meant to be used for in the beginning. Now, there are issues, you know, I would go far back to say as when they made those buildings, they were supposed to have been blown down. And that's not me, this is just what I read about. And like the Asian Art Museum saw the writing on the wall. They knew that this issue wasn't the traffic, they're gonna close it off, it's gonna happen. They moved down to Civic Center and opened up the old library, fantastic idea. They did what they needed to do. They're surviving, they're thriving. The DeYoung chose to stay at all costs. Academy, I don't tell people who can be in a park or not. All I know is all my time there, these have been the people stopping what the people want. The people want the park closed to cars. The people who don't want it closed off to cars, their interests have nothing to do with the people. They have nothing to do with your quality of life. They have nothing to do with any of that except for they want. They want. Now, they voted, they won, okay? Can't argue with that, but I don't really think that they should be here discussing this because they have an 800 space garage right under them. Why would they even, you know, bother with trying to stop the closure of the park the way it should be?
My mic, so they don't want me to talk. Thank you, David. So I want to get to audience questions in a bit because we've been here for a while. I'm in my mind, I'm like, well, how do I tie all this up, right? And what I'm hearing is, I'm hearing fear and I'm hearing hope, right? And from the folks who are fear of the unknown or concern. And I can empathize with that as a business owner, as a convener, everything that's gone over the last year and a half, and the loss of revenue, the loss of staff, to then introduce something completely, not completely new because there have been closed days, but an X factor of cutting off access. I can understand how that can be really scary because what will that look like in attendance and numbers and access once tourists come back? I'm also hearing a lot of hope. This has been something we wanted. There's all these things that can happen from it. It's creating joy, it's creating wonder. And there's this hunger and this desire to keep it going. I guess I'll ask Sarah, I want you to close this portion, then we're gonna get to audience question. Like, how do you want this process to play out? I mean, as I know you're not representing the whole city government here. There's a survey. Like, how do you effectively try to figure out if the customers of these museums are really being shut out or it's something that is a major concern for seniors, disability folks from other neighborhoods that now aren't going to the park. And how are you getting a representative sample of, all the many people that from the city and beyond that have an opinion on this issue? And once you answer that, then I'm going to get to audience questions. We're going to do it for like 15 minutes, okay? Have we been able to answer the question, should JFK be close to cars? Maybe, maybe not. But it's the whole purpose of tonight is to give you food for thought, to take home and, kind of marinate. So Sarah.
So really quickly, the goal is, it's an art and a science, right? Our job is to make a policy recommendation that ultimately the Board of Supervisors will vote on. This road is under the Parks Department jurisdiction, just like Great Highway. And there's a quirk in the California Vehicle Code that means that that road is under the jurisdiction of the board. All the rest of the roads in the city, your board could do this without a vote of the Board of Supervisors. So we'll take all this public feedback.
Every road? That's cool.
Yeah, most of them, not Mansell and not Great Highway and not this one, there are.
Cute.
Yeah.
Great.
So we'll take public feedback. We've had over 7,000 people fill out the survey right now, which is actually pretty good for a government survey. And the San Francisco County Transportation Authority, different entity, is actually doing a proper poll with a polling firm on these very issues. So that'll be put into the mix. And then your staff at the MTA, Manny, are doing the technical analysis, right? They're going to be able to say, we're modeling this traffic. We think the 44 has increased by 4 minutes already, right? What's going to happen to 44? What's going to happen to transit? What's parking occupancy? All of that technical stuff gets put together, and then we put it out to the policymakers.
And when is that going to happen?
Early next year is the hope.
Cool. My mic keeps dying, so I'm just going to speak loudly. Let's get to audience.
In case anyone's wondering about the survey thus far, San Franciscans support the current car-free configuration at 75%. So 75% of San Franciscans support exactly as it is, and as well as all the improvements that Sarah outlined.
Thank you, Luke. Let's get to Mario.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, everyone. Question for all you panelists. Look, because I saw one survey that said 75% support it. I saw another survey that said majority oppose it. Let's cut to the chase. Let's turn it into a ballot measure. Let's democratize the process. Who's afraid of a ballot measure in an election? Get the narrative, put it on the ballot. Everyone gets to weigh in. Nothing personal. I see everyone here, but I don't see a broad representation of the city. Nothing personal, Manny. You're awesome. But face it. Why is everyone afraid of not putting it on a ballot? And let's put it to the vote. Let the people speak and take your surveys. Nothing personal, and
I don't know that anyone's afraid of it. I think we're not. The Board of Supervisors is going through their process. If either side decides they don't like the outcome, they can absolutely put it on the ballot. It's obviously there's multiple ways, right? The mayor can do it, 4 supervisors, 6 supervisors can vote, or you guys can go and organize a bunch of signatures and employ a lot of people.
And thank you, Sarah. That was my question to you each individually. Would you be opposed or would you be in support of a ballot measure? And I'll start with David, I guess.
I would tell you right now, I would be definitely in support of having a ballot measure because I personally know how people feel about the park and how they feel about the closures from being there. And I know what a wonderful thing it is for people. The thing is, I do believe we had Proposition F on the ballot before, and it was a similar thing. But we're talking about the past. We didn't have the pandemic. We didn't have the experience that we have now. And what you have now is a totally different set of circumstances, whereas we have had many, many months to see exactly how the closure impacts people in their everyday lives. And it is enhancing their quality of life. The people that go there that I see, and I live on 26 in Fulton. I've lived next to Golden Gate Park for at least 35, 40 years. And before that, I was in the Visitation Valley, where it would take me 45 minutes to skate from Visitation Valley to Golden Gate Park. So anybody that say they can't get there, they have issues being there, no, you don't. All you gotta do is wanna get there, and you can get there, you can enjoy it. But there is no more successful recreational experience, program, health program, or anything than the closure of JFK Drive.
Okay, I would put that on the ballot right away. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, David. Let's just do like a quick round robin. Yes on the ballot, would you support it or no? Just real quick, I don't want a whole exposition.
Just a quick clarification, there is only one official survey from MTA and RPD, that is the one that shows 75% support, so just to clarify that. And then I think, we have these agencies, we have the city agencies that we empower, we have officials that we elect, we have processes set up. So I think we follow this process through, and if whichever side is upset about this, they want to raise a ballot measure, by all means, we do that. But I don't see a reason in stopping this process that is already well underway to finish it out first.
Okay, Jason?
I just say, I think it's a really interesting idea. Maybe you could fix some of the issues around Prop J that was passed in 1998 regarding the parking garage. I would love to know more about it, but obviously I'm not in that sort of political sphere, but I would love to learn more about your ideas.
Cool, Mike?
I'm not an expert in ballot measures, but I will say that it is very important that everyone in the city speaks up. I think a data-driven, comprehensive approach is very, very important.
Okay, and Sarah, would you, it's still tough because you're a city official, but what do you think?
I'm a government employee. Power to the people.
All right.
Yes.
Okay, let's go all the way over there and then this individual right here on the couch.
Well, first I just want to say I stopped visiting museums because of your decisions. So I know you get a lot of people complaining because they can't find parking. I can easily go there, but I will not.
Okay, all right,
Could I respond?
yeah, go ahead.
So what do you think our position is at the academy? If I may ask you, I don't want to put you on the spot.
Yeah, no, I think previously based on some of your responses and following closely, you guys have been between lobbying and other avenues have tried to reposition. I know you stopped in those positions over the months, but until you come out fully supporting car-free JFK, I can't.
Okay, so
Guys, we don't need the crowd to emphasize individual points. If that's not necessary, so I don't actually feel like it's productive, so I would keep the claps and the snaps to yourself out of respect to our panels.
But I do have a question, so I don't want to just my time on that. My big question, I think a lot of people here are thinking, car-free, Sundays were car-free JFK, a lot of Saturdays were car-free JFK. For the museum, what were your biggest limitations before COVID? Were those the weekends? Why all of a sudden does this matter? For a lot of us, it feels like it's just about employee parking and trying to give free employee parking.
okay, so those are two good questions. I'd like to address the position thing. The academy has not changed our stance. On our website, we actually have a statement there. We're a science research institution. Our position has always been, we are for a robust, comprehensive, unbiased study that takes a look at not just objects moving through space, but the impacts on accessibility to the communities whom we serve. So that has not changed. As far as employee parking goes, I think, I don't know if I've shared this before, but since 2001, the academy, if you commute sustainably, anything but arrive by yourself in a car, we will give you extra cash in your paychecks, extra vacation days. And on the front of house, we had a practice here where if you came and just told us about sustainability, we would actually give you a discount off of general admission. So it is not for us about employee parking.
So what about the what's your business?
Basically when kids are out of school, that's when we're busiest. And then during the weekdays, we have our weekends, obviously Saturday and Sunday are our busiest days. So Saturdays, we have generally our highest gross attendance because we don't open to the public until 11. On Saturdays, we do 9:30. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, so hold on one second. So just to square the circle, I think what I'm hearing is, on one end, you're saying we're worried about lack of car access affecting numbers, but I think what the gentleman is saying is, I'm also hearing that on days where there haven't been cars in the past, a lot of people actually do come to the museum. So how do you, Sundays, right? Because Sundays it's been closed. So how do you, it just maybe explain, because maybe someone hears that and they think that there's something else there. So can you help?
I want to make sure I'm understanding the question right. So if I can repeat it back to you, you're just saying, when are our busiest days during the COVID shutdown, the JFK shutdown? No?
No, I mean, JFK was closed on Sundays, pre-COVID, and on a Saturday.
He's saying before COVID.
Before COVID, okay.
You were
All right.
saying those were always the same, right?
Yeah, so those are our highest attendance days. Okay,
Let him answer the question.
So for folks that came here, like, all right, so pre-COVID, I think we addressed, Jason addressed the 2017 survey. We did 11,000 respondents of our constituents. And we asked folks who came, how they got here, who's in their party, et cetera. So we found that 42% of folks who came had someone in their party with a mobility challenge. We also found that around the same percentage or slightly higher came in a privately owned vehicle. Now, while we try and influence folks to come sustainably, a lot of them do come by car if they don't live by a transit line. So if you're asking the question about, well, what's with Saturdays versus Sundays, we have found that the majority of our visitors, especially that come from the surrounding counties, not within San Francisco, come in a privately owned vehicle. So on Sundays, yes, they would just have to drive around more. In terms of net attendance, that still has an impact, but again, we're taking a look at making sure that everyone can get there conveniently and safely. Those are two priorities.
I think my question.
Okay, 1 second. This is, I'm gonna let you make one last point, and then with respect to everyone else, I'm gonna move on to someone else. So,
To be more direct.
I'd like to speak.
In my your busiest days, JFK is car free, it is still car free. What did COVID change? Why now do you want it not to be car free?
so I'll let Jason respond to that, and then David also wants to chime in.
So of course, the weekends are the busiest times at most institutions. It's the busiest time if you go shopping. It's the busiest time if you go to most restaurants. If you go to Dolores Park, it's the busiest time as well. So what you're making an assumption is that because it's the busiest time, that there aren't other people who aren't able-bodied, who have access problems, that they aren't deciding to go midweek. So a lot of those people are coming midweek. Our access days are midweek. That's when we bring a lot of people and have special programs at the museum because it is easier for people to access it. So the broader public is making choices about when to come to our various institutions. Some people who can do it will come on the weekends. There's no doubt about that. I think one other just important point when we think about access to JFK, the one thing for us, I know you talk about employees a lot, really operationally, our biggest impact is that we are situated on JFK for all of our operational needs. So we've been there 125 years. We have between 100 and 200 car trips on JFK every week. It's all related to maintenance, taking care of the buildings, your fire alarm system, your safety systems. Additionally, we have cafe operations, retail operations, and then finally, and most importantly, all of our art deliveries. We have semis coming down JFK with art deliveries. This happens on a consistent and regular basis, and this is a big concern of ours. I know that the Rec and Park has added some signage, but that is not sufficient for broader safety, and that is one of our biggest concerns. That is going to exist no matter what ends up happening here, and so we have to all collectively find some solutions together.
Got it. David wanted to chime in, and then I want to get one more question in before we do breakouts, one or two if we can. We have been here for a touch. So, David.
One of the things that has always been consistent when dealing with the institutions and Sunday, how many people on Sundays is they never come up with the numbers that say which one's busy. They'll give you all these other things and say all this other stuff, but as a person that's there and seen it and worked it and all that, there are more people in the park going to all of the institutions, buying food, going to the conservatory, using the park what it was meant to be used for on Sundays when the park is closed, car traffic. So all the issues, all the problems that you can have that can hinder you from going to the park, Sunday has been the most successful day, not just for going to the museum, but for your health and for your quality of life. So I've never seen the numbers that say that. I've always heard these other issues about other things that don't get to the nitty gritty. And the nitty gritty is the park being closed to traffic will be a boom for business. You will have more people coming to the museum, coming to the College of Arts and Sciences because it's closed. And you got an 800 space garage. So, all right, to me, that's it.
I'm sorry, I want to move on to more audience questions. Let's get both of your questions together and then we'll see if we can answer them together. So why don't we start with you and then we'll get your question. I see your hand, but I just need to get to some questions. So what is your question, sir?
The survey. I have a big issue with the survey. It is the most grossly biased and slanted survey that in my memory I've seen. it wants everybody to close the JFK Drive. And every question is slanted that way, that the actual keep it open isn't until the very end of the survey. And so I don't find it surprising that 75% say, yeah, okay, let's close it. Look at the Chronicle survey, 2-to-1 for opening JFK. So what is going on?
All right, that, good question. We're gonna put a pin in it, and then what is your question?
We've heard a lot of numbers, 3 ballot measures, $24 million up to pay off the garage, potential revenue loss at the museums. However, JFK Drive is on the Vision Zero high injury network. Since the JFK closure, there have been 0 collisions, fatal or otherwise, on this corridor. What price tag do you put on potential lives saved or lost, depending on the decision we make today about the future of JFK Drive?
Okay, those are 2 questions on the table. They're on the table. I think that the survey question should go to you, Sarah, as your department is, I think, and MTA have worked together in the survey. So why don't we give you the survey question? And then on the Vision Zero question, and the safety impacts, I mean, maybe have 1 or 2 people chime in on that. Seems like there was some maybe disagreement on whether that's true or not, and maybe Luke, you can chime in it, and one of the folks in the museums. Go ahead, Sarah.
Sure, so the survey, our survey, jointly with the MTA, is set up for people to use the Likert scale and rate how favorably they feel about a variety of different things, the road configurations, and then those interventions I was talking about. Internet surveys, I don't have any visibility into the Chronicle survey. One of the challenges with a survey like this is it's very hard to get statistically significant responses, right? Because somebody could sit there and do it 15 times. We have ours limited so that an IP address can only use it once. But in terms of like actually understanding what every San Franciscan thinks, I think was that Rich back there who asked Mario, you would have to have a ballot measure. So I'm happy to talk to you offline about if you have suggestions for the way it's constructed, but we do work with people who do this for a living to construct it.
All right, and then the question about
Vision Zero.
Vision Zero, is it true that there have been no accidents or fatalities?
Correct.
And how much do we know about what taking cars off the road does? And was it a place where people were getting hit by cars before?
Luke, I'll let you go. You can check this off. Go ahead.
Yeah, quickly to touch on the last. I'll go.
Just keep the mic close to your mouth.
I
Yeah,
can
I was
just give you the
actually- I was
quick
gonna go-
outline of the facts, that it is on, you are correct, it's on the high injury network. I'm gonna get the number wrong, I think there were 10,
There were 10.
including a fatality. And that was the impetus for former Mayor Ed Lee's executive directive to do some pedestrian improvements. There's now speed bumps and bulb outs and new crosswalks that were in place, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah, the quick note I was gonna make is on the visitation side, I would love for the museums to share visitation and membership data. From what I've heard, that data has not been shared, so I don't know if you guys would be willing to commit to sharing that with agencies and with reporters, the public. So that's kind of.
Yes.
Yeah.
So with the data that
You guys will share all visitation and membership data up until now.
Yeah, so we shared our 2017 massive study that we did together with the city. We're willing to reshare it again, and we'd like to see actually more data.
Hold on, let him answer the question.
Okay. So we'd like to see where we are in the study itself, so we kind of know what data we can provide that's actually being constructed. We'd like to see that, and so we're actively participating in this. To the question about the walk, as a cyclist who's broken ribs, collapsed lungs, concussions, there is no price on safety. It is paramount. It is so important. The Walk SF report, though, if I recall correctly, that was just released past summer, that had safety data up to 2019, showed that the eastern span of JFK was not part of the high injury corridor. If it's west of Crossover Drive, yes. And then also Fulton is a very high injury corridor. So those are very specific. Those are important to note, but there is no price on safety. You're right.
And then I'll let Luke get a response in, and then I want to close it out.
Yeah, just to clarify, the eastern portion was on the high injury network. But I would say not only has there not been serious injuries or fatalities since basically opening JFK to people, I think David's point earlier is a profound one that we should really reflect on, which is the opening of JFK has brought people out and made them discover things like the skating place that they didn't discover before when there was a pseudo protected bike lane. So some people will say, hey, we can just revamp the bike lane, we can just widen the sidewalk, we can make it a little bit more friendly and safe, maybe we'll put a bigger barrier, we'll separate the traffic. That still will ruin the delightful experience of discovering the skating place. It will ruin the delightful experience of having kids learn how to scoot and bike in the park. And it will ruin the experience of having fresh air without auto noise and without exhaust and without parents having fear of their kid getting hit by a car. So I think it's beyond just serious injuries or fatalities. We have an opportunity here again to do something profound for our park, for our city, for our country. It's more than just serious injuries and fatalities. We have a profound opportunity here, and it would be a shame to miss out on this opportunity.
Okay, one
Can I say
second.
one quick thing?
Yes, so I want to give everyone 1 minute to close out. Just basically give your final thoughts on the issue. If you want to answer the question yourself, should JFK be close to cars, you can do that. Or if in your final minute, you kind of want to just pose the question back to the audience and to the folks listening, like what do you think how they should prioritize, the gives and the takes. So we'll start with you, then we'll go Ike, Jason. I think Luke, that was a very good closing. So if you want more, you can, but I think that was very eloquent, and then David will close it out. So go ahead, Sarah.
Pressure. I guess what I two things, just to echo what David said about the magic of the place, and then to be, because I'm the government representative here, I can bring it down for everybody. Valencia Street, our very own Valencia Street, right here. 18% more visitors to the restaurants on Valencia Street with the closure. So I think this business case that people are trying to make, it's a new world out there post-COVID during COVID, with parklets and closed streets and how people respond to that. And I think it has become part of the attraction. As David has the heart and I'm the part of that statement. Should JFK be close to cars, or what do I think would happen? My job is to say, we're the parks department. We run parks. We try to create an oasis from the urban environment, a break from it. Of course, we want more open space, and we want a safe, good way to do that. The preliminary information that we have working closely with the MTA is that we can do that and address a lot of the access issues that does bring up. We are in that process. We are doing outreach and the technical work. And hopefully we'll be able to present something that shows our work to the policymakers early next year.
Amazing. Thank you, Sarah. And thank you for taking time on a weekday to come and do this.
I can speak personally. So I live in the outer Sunset. And I said before, I ride my wife's bike or I walk to work. I have the privilege of living less than 2 miles from where I work. And I currently have the physical ability right now to be able to do that. And I enjoy that privilege very much. For the Academy, and also I think for our colleagues at the Fine Arts Museums, it really is about removing barriers to access. Whether it's something logistical like transportation or even financial. Pre-pandemic, we had about 1.2 million or so attendants. 335,000 of those folks came for free or nearly for free. When I say nearly for free, I mean for $3. And it's about lowering barriers to get folks who don't traditionally get to come to this place or customarily come to this place to be able to enjoy the space. Now, the last thing I'll say is that people with physical or cognitive disabilities, if it's a minority group, it's the only minority group we can join at any time in their life involuntarily. And if we live long enough, it's inevitable. So we do want to make sure that we are creating space for those folks as well to be inclusive.
Thank you, Ike. Appreciate it. And thank you as well for coming here tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Jason.
All right, thank you. So we're certainly still in the middle of our pandemic. We're still getting back to a new way of life. Kids are back in school to an extent. People are just starting to get back into some normal routines again. And so we're making a lot of decisions today based upon routines that were occurring in the middle of the pandemic. And that's where our concern lies, frankly. And we are open to ideas and modified changes to the road. But At the same time, we need to make sure that they're well studied, that we get a very diverse and representative sample in order to make those changes, so that we can do things like support Vision Zero, that we can have dedicated lanes for bikes and pedestrians, but at the same time, acknowledge the fact that we need to replace spaces that are for accessible folks on the road, give access to the operational needs of our institutions, and also be cognizant of the equity issues that are associated with totally closing off the park for access overall.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you very much for being here tonight. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And Luke.
Yeah, so I guess I'll just leave some people with some numbers. So, we're talking about less than 10% of the roads in Golden Gate Park, or less than 0.1% of the roads in all of San Francisco that have magically become kid safe. And we've had over 7 million people visit this space, and over 75% of the people who have engaged with the survey, with the official survey, supported staying as is and making improvements for accessibility purposes. We have and we will continue to advocate for increased accessibility and increased access for everyone. Just another number for you all, 18 spots were taken away, 88 spots on JFK. After all the work is said and done, there will be up to 33 spots, and that is excluding anything with the garage. So we see an amazing opportunity here for our city to take leadership and show people around the country and around the world what we can do with a park space. And we really hope to see people get behind that and show our city leaders what they should do in this case.
Thank you, Luke. David?
When you close a street to car traffic, you create recreational space for people. Very important. Not just because you want to go roller skate or ride your bike, but more that you want to enhance your quality of life. You want to enjoy yourself. You want to be healthy. This is what your parks are put there for you to be able to do. The mission of Golden Gate Park, as I read it, and I put it in some of the things to make my point, is to enjoy yourself in a green sylvan environment and escape the hustle and bustle of everyday life. That wasn't written the other day. That wasn't written a few years ago. That was written as the mission of Golden Gate Park. How do you make that mission? How do you accomplish that when a car can run you over and kill you? I mean, it's just common sense. A lot of things about common sense is what people need to consider here. Because if you look at what happens there, the families, the kids, even the businesses selling hot dogs, renting bicycles, segways, all of this is churning around there right now. And my business was closed during COVID. I had to shut down my church of 8 wheels. We had to survive just like everybody else. It's hard. It's hard. But we all are in this together. And I think that if you do go forward with closing that park to traffic, you're going to make more people happy. You're going to make more people feel good about themselves as they go back to deal with taxes and schools and masks and all the other things that just bring us down. But we've already seen right now, and with our own eyes, how wonderful it's been in the park without the cars there. I just think we should keep it going.
Thank you, David Miles Jr. Can we get a round of applause for our panel? Moderating a panel with people that had different perspectives on a singular issue. Not necessarily fully oppositional, but different. So often in conversations, we've gone to these echo chambers where either it's on Twitter or Facebook. If we are in conversation with someone who has a different perspective, it's anonymous or it's digitized or we've never seen their face. And I think it's actually really good. It's a good practice. I think we need to get back into it. Being able to disagree on something and still respect that person. So I thank you all for giving me this opportunity. The next one that we're doing, a couple plugs, and then I'm gonna let you guys leave in a bit. The next in this series is the question, should the school board be recalled? And we're actually, I've been able to, yes, we're going there.
Wait till that one starts.
We are gonna have.
Are they gonna talk about debt financing?
I'll
be there. We are actually, one of the members of the school board who is on the ballot is gonna be here, as well as the leaders of the recall effort, and we're gonna be in conversation about it. So, yes, that's gonna happen. We're really excited about that too. Tomorrow we have a double header. We have the future of Judaism at 6 o'clock, and then we have alternatives to the drug war at 7 o'clock. And then on Saturday, it's our 3rd anniversary. And so we're doing a carnival. Oh yeah, okay, thank you. Much more low key. We're turning the parklet into a petting zoo, and we're gonna have an alpaca, and we're gonna have balloon animals, cotton candy, popcorn, a DJ, photo booth, and we're doing a dunk tank, and we're gonna dunk local politicians. So Matt Haney's gonna be dunkable, and Hillary Ronan, and Verna Melgar. So if you wanna come and dunk some politicians, you can come on Saturday from 2 to 5. No, we're not closing the street off. Not closing my block off. I want to quickly just point your attention to the screen here and here. Manny's is funded by a couple hundred individuals who pay $36 a month or more to support our work. Tonight's event was free, but running a business is not free. It actually costs a lot of money. And I'm really proud of the fact that my small business is actually funded by the community. But we need to grow those numbers to continue doing our work. So you can lift your phone up to that QR code and you'll get the page to become a Manny sponsor. It's a monthly thing and you can cancel at any time, but it is how we are existing today. Okay, I want to thank Ram for giving me a new mic in the middle of the set. Thank you for doing that. Very cool move. Again, I want to thank my panel. If you're willing to stay for a couple minutes, just divide yourself into groups of 4 and take 5 minutes and just talk about what you thought about tonight's conversation. Hopefully you can talk to someone that maybe has a different opinion. Just kind of discuss, do you think JFK should be close to cars? Why or why not? And with that, I say thank you so much and have a wonderful evening, everyone. And exit to the back where Precious is. Front is closed, so exit to the back, that door right there, if you're not staying and being in conversation. If you're staying, find a group of 4 people and just have a 5-minute discussion on what you just heard. Thanks so much, everyone.
It was stressful. Why is it stressful? Very